Hello, dear friends. I'm talking to you after Shabbat Nachamu, which is the Sabbath of comfort, which comes right after the 9th of Av, which is the day a fast day in which we commemorate the destruction of two temples, among other things in our history. And right before Tu B'Av, the 15th of Av, which is a day of happiness. And I'd like to talk about Tu B'Av and its special significance, especially today. The Mishnah in Ta'anit says, Lo hayu yamim tovim l'Yisrael, there were not better days for Israel than the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur, in which the daughters of Israel went out in white dresses, and it was a day of matchmaking between the men and the women, the young men and the women at the time. Because of this story in the Mishnah, today, Tu B'Av is called the Jewish Day of Love. Some people even call it the Jewish Valentine's Day. But if we look into the history of the day, especially the biblical history, and the way the Mishnah portrays it, we see it a little bit differently. Let's talk about the Mishnah first. The Mishnah mentions not just the 15th of Av, which has a biblical precedent, which I'll talk about in a moment, but also Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, the Jewish fast day, the Day of Atonement, the biblical Day of Atonement on the 10th day of Tishrei. All of a sudden, it's a matchmaking day. What is that all about? Well, okay, so everybody remembers the 15th day of Av, but we don't seem to remember the day of Yom Kippur. I actually have a friend who met his wife on Yom Kippur. For those who know the service on Yom Kippur, you know on Yom Kippur you have the memorial prayer. And there are a lot of people who have a custom then for the memorial prayer for a parent, if their parents are alive, they actually walk out. So this man, he was a young man, he walked out, and there was a young woman who walked out, and they met that way outside the synagogue on Yom Kippur. But in antiquity, it seems that these were days, both the 15th of Av and Yom Kippur, we had matchmaking. Actually, it makes a lot of sense for young people to meet on Yom Kippur. Because it's such a solemn day and a day of judgment, well, people might actually think correctly when they're looking for a match and think about the important things too, and not just other things. So it actually makes sense, specifically in Yom Kippur, to have matchmaking in that sense. Maybe you'll look for the right things in the match. But what is the story, of course, of Tu B'Av? And I will get back to Yom Kippur and Tu B'Av after I talk about what the story of Tu B'Av is. So this takes place in the book of Judges. In the book of Judges, it starts from chapter 19. And the chapter starts, in those days, there was no king in Israel. Everybody did what was good in their eyes. And the book of Judges tells a very tragic story about a man who was married to this woman called a Pilegesh, and I don't want to explain what it is now, but what the term meant at the time. But the moment is, he was married to this woman, and she ran away, said she wasn't faithful, and he ran after her, and she went back to her father's house, and he went back to her father's house, and they made up, and they left. And on the way back to, he was a Levite, and on the way back to Bethlehem, where she was from, and I think he too. So they were looking for a place to stay for the night. They didn't want to stay in the Jebusite city because it was a non-Jewish city. So they stayed in the Giv'ah, which is a city in the tribe of Benjamin, and they were from the tribe of Judah. And then that night, there's a fellow takes them in because they're looking for a place, and a very nice guy takes them in, and they have dinner, and he's very nice to them. But in the middle of the night, these hooligans, these ruffians, surround the house, just like the story in Sodom and Gomorrah when the angels met Lot, and they surrounded the house and said, "Show us your guests, we want to know them." The same thing happened here. These hooligans surround the house, and they say, "We want to know this guy who's here," which means has sexual implications. So the owner of the house says, "No, I have my daughter, let me give her to you." And they say no, which is also a strange thing. And finally, this man takes his wife and puts her on the outside, and they rape her, and in the morning she is left dead at the doorpost. And then the man comes out and he cuts her body into 12 parts and sends these 12 parts to all the tribes of Israel and says, look what these people of the tribe of Benjamin, these hooligans did. I want justice. So all the tribes, not just Judah, all the tribes of Israel band together, and 400,000 men parade down to the tribe of Benjamin. And they stand on the border of the tribe of Benjamin, and they say to them, look, we know exactly what happened. And then the man tells the story, says, we want the hooligans. Give us those hooligans so we can punish them, and we'll leave. Benjamin says, we're not going to give them to you. I guess they mean that we do our own dirty laundry. We don't give it to other people. So that all the tribes say, okay, then you leave us no choice. And they round the men up, and they come with 400,000 men and declare war on the tribe of Benjamin. But before they go out to the war with the tribe of Benjamin, they go to Shiloh, where the tabernacle is. And they ask the high priest, who has a special breastplate, where he can ask questions to God. And the answer is, illuminate the stones of the breastplate. And they ask the high priest, please ask, should we go and fight Benjamin? Is it okay if we go to fight Benjamin for this? And the answer they get is, yes, you can go. And then they go out to war against Benjamin, and they lose the battle. 22,000 men are killed from this coalition from all the tribes. 22,000 out of 400,000 are killed. And after that, they start to cry, and they go back to Shiloh. And they wonder maybe they did something wrong. And they again ask the high priest, should we go out to war tomorrow? Are we allowed to do so? The high priest asks the breastplate, and the answer is, yes, you can. So they decide to go back, and they fight Benjamin again. Benjamin must have been a very able tribe, because Benjamin's only had 25,000 soldiers against 400,000. And again, Benjamin beats them in battle, and 18,000 of them fall. Altogether now we're up to 40,000 people who've been killed from the coalition tribes against Benjamin. And again, they don't understand what's going on. And they fast, and they cry, and they bring offerings to God. And then a third time they go back, and they ask the high priest, maybe we did something wrong. Can we ask again? He says, yes. And again they say, can we go and fight Benjamin? And the answer is yes, for tomorrow I will deliver him in your hands. And they go a third time. And this time they battle Benjamin. And the battle was rough. But in the end, they're able to smite Benjamin. And they kill almost all the soldiers. I think it was 25,000 out of 26. But basically, they wipe out the army of Benjamin. And this is the first part of the story. Let me just tell you what happens after them. They wipe out Benjamin, and if you remember, tribes are based on the husband, right? The male is the one, in Judaism, the Jewish identity or the Israelite identity goes through the woman, but the tribal identity goes through the man, right? You're a Cohen if your father's a Cohen. You're a Levite if your father's a Levite. So once they wiped out all the men of Benjamin almost completely, that would mean there's no more tribe of Benjamin. They even took an oath that nobody who was to marry the tribe of Benjamin after what happened. Well, but then they thought, wait a sec. It's not a good idea to wipe out a tribe of Israel. It doesn't look good. I mean, we were 12 tribes, and now we're going to lose a whole tribe. But on the other hand, these few hundred men that might be left in Benjamin, we already swore they're not going to marry our daughters. So they decided that on that 15th of Av, that day of the 15th of Av, which we're commemorating this week, they said, men in Benjamin, you can go out into the forest, into vineyards of Shiloh, place where the tabernacle is, and we'll let our daughters too go out to those vineyards, and you can intermingle and marry from our daughters, because we've decided to let you back. Punishment was already had, and now it's time to make new amends. And that's exactly what happened on the 15th day of Av. And therefore, the Mishnah says there was no greater day, no better day than the 15th of Av. And why was it such a great day? Not just because it was matchmaking, because it was a day when the tribes were able to mend and get rid of their enmity and learn to unite and get along again. Now, if we understand those 2 days, we'll understand what they both mean. Yom Kippur and the 15th of Av. Yom Kippur, according to our tradition, not only is the Day of Atonement, but it's also the day that Moses gave the second tablets, Luchot Shniot. The first tablets, according to our tradition, were given on the 17th of Tammuz. But Moses comes down with the tablets. He sees the golden calf and he breaks the tablets. Then he goes up to the mountain again 40 days and 40 nights. And prays to God that God forgive the sin of the golden calf. And then again he goes up 40 days and 40 nights. And God says, you know what? You broke the tablets. You fix them. Solecha luchot karishonim. You engrave tablets now and bring them down to the people. And Moses comes down on the 10th of Tishrei, which is of course becomes the Yom Kippurim, the Day of Atonement, and gives them the second luchot, the second beginning, the second Torah, the second giving of the Torah, the second chances. The luchot shiot is a second chance to receive the Torah. So Yom Kippurim is a second chance to receive the Torah. And Tu B'Av is the ability to mend a broken people. So we mended broken tablets in order to receive the Torah, and then we mend a broken people on Tu B'Av. Now, I want to mention something else. In the story of Pilegesh Bagiva, which I just mentioned from the book of Judges, chapter 19, the question is, why is it that when they asked the high priest through the breastplate, basically asking God if they should go out to battle, if they're allowed to go out to battle, 3 times God says yes, but the first 2 times they lose. And they lose 22,000, 18,000, a very significant amount of soldiers. How is that yes? And why on the 3rd time only did they win? In my opinion, this is a very profound teaching. And the teaching is that even if you are right, because the other side did something wrong, negotiate, work it out, find a way. Because if you want to win, when you're talking about brothers, there is a price to be paid. So Judah, you want to win against Benjamin, there's going to be a price. It doesn't come easy. Now, if Judah was to win the first time, they wouldn't have understood. They would have understood the price is only on the other guy. So first, God made sure that they paid the price twice because they're a much larger group. And then the 3rd time they won. To teach them that when you fight your brother, there is always a price you're going to have to pay. And to teach us for later generations, that when the tribes don't get along, you have to first work at peaceful ways of getting along. You don't want to have to win. When one side wins, every side loses. That's what we learn from Pilegesh Bagiva from this chapter 19 in the book of Judges. Because remember, in our history, brothers fighting has always been a difficult episode. The book of Genesis almost starts with fratricide, where Cain kills Abel, 2 brothers not getting along. One wants to win and kills the other. And that way, and Cain has to be punished, and of course, Abel is not there anymore. And in the tribes of Israel, Joseph and the brothers don't get along. And only later on in Egypt have they learned to get along again. But this split continues. As we know, later on in our history, many times, you have the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Israel. Even in this story, Pilegesh Bagiva, you have the tribes led by Judah, who is the son of Leah, facing Benjamin, who is the son of Rachel. So this split happens already there. And of course, after Solomon, the kingdom is split to the northern tribes, which is called the tribes of Joseph, of Ephraim, right, led by a child of Rachel, and the southern tribe, which is called Judea or Judah, from the children of Leah. And we know that the transient king, Saul, is from Benjamin, who is, of course, a son of Rachel. And the permanent king, the descendants of David, are from Judah, son of Leah. And of course, Shiloh, where you have the transient tabernacle for 400 years, is in the tribe of Joseph. Whereas the Beit HaMikdash, the temple, is in the tribe of Judah. So these splits happen, but they're there to challenge us, to get over them. Second Temple period, even though there was no more northern kingdom anymore, only Judea, you had a split between the Pharisees and the Sadducees. Sadducees were more influenced by the Hellenists and the Pharisees less. And this split created a lot of arguments and inner division. And eventually the Second Temple period, we know what happened. So when you have splits, in Israel we have issues, but these issues can be mended. They can be mended when the sides decide not to win, to learn how to cooperate. So what Tu B'Av is teaching us is how to cooperate and the dangers of winning. It doesn't matter if you're right. There are other ways to reach your goal. And if you can reach it through cooperation, that goal will be permanent. And what you achieved will be permanent. So when we look back on this day, we remember Yom Kippur was a second chance to receive what was broken tablets in the right way. And Tu B'Av is a time to receive what was a fission between the Jewish people, united again into a united people. And that's why it's a day of matchmaking, where men and women can get together and leave their singularity to learn cooperation. So this is something that we have to learn every Tu B'Av. May there be peace on Israel. Shalom, shalom.